That will take us to item number 93, which was a pulled item. I'll lay out item number 93. Members, this has ended up being a very collaborative resolution. The version 2 is the version that we will be looking at. It is the resolution. We've been through it on the message board a number of times, but there are a couple of things that I want to point out before we start the public comment on this. One is there is a recognition, and I want it to be clear, I don't think there is anyone on the dais that doesn't recognize the urgency with which we want to move. And so one of the clear messages that I hope that staff gets as a result of us passing this resolution on this item is that while it says no later than 26, that doesn't mean it has to be 26. It is no later than 26, and we want to move with the sort of dispatch that this item and the comprehensive bond package and all the climate aspect of it, climate investment aspect of it, and a comprehensive bond package, all of that deserves. That means a couple of things. One is that the council will be coming forward with work about the creation of a task force. And I'll pause for a second to say the version 2 that everybody has is a version where legal has made recommendations regarding language related to the creation of the task force. Councilmember Ryan Alter did as well, and that's also included in version 2. But there are a number of whereas provisions that weren't in the original version, but you've now had that and seen that. We will be bringing forward, again with some dispatch, a resolution so that we can get a task force appointed in the traditional way the city has done that. I think the Mayor Pro Tem, you've probably all seen the Mayor Pro Tem's post on the message board about bringing forward a resolution along those lines. From a staff perspective, it's going to be important, I believe, and I just say this because I think I'm speaking again based upon the message board and the other comments I've seen members have made publicly, that as soon as staff is capable, we're going to let the process serve itself and be a true process. But as soon as, without setting this deadline and that deadline, at least the resolution doesn't do that, but staff, that means it's on y'all to get it back to us as fast as you can. And that includes maybe setting out clear timelines that we will be able to look at and comment on so that we can say whether or not we think that's moving rapidly enough, things of that nature. That would include, by the way, the list. You'd have timelines, but it would include things like project lists as that moves forward and as that's taken to the task force, especially since, as has been pointed out by members of the council, there are a number of reports and items and memos and whatever different kinds of things, however you might want to characterize them, that tell things that we believe ought to be done. So as the work begins on that and the answers to the questions, the things like the decision tree process, things of that nature that have been brought up by the council to staff, we're really looking forward to that coming forward. There is a real sense of urgency to this, trying to do this in a collaborative way, consistent with past processes and consistent with what we can do with other items besides just climate investment in terms of comprehensive bond proposals. So that's my layout. What I will do is, I guess so that we can have comment on this, is I'll move that we adopt version 2 of item number 93. It's seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem, and then we have people that have signed up to speak. So I'll turn to the city clerk for people to sign up to speak, and then we'll have discussion and vote.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go to our remote speakers. Rosario Lopez Cadenas on item 93, 3 minutes. Rosario, please unmute.
Hi, my name is Rosario Lopez. I strongly support the climate bond, though I am extremely disappointed it has been delayed, especially when we're seeing more severe weather across the world. We especially need climate action now. Despite that, there are a couple things I would like to see from a climate bond whenever it happens. I think solar energy and batteries for city buildings and operations is important, as well as expanding composting. I would like to see carbon sequestration, sustainable agriculture, more biodiversity and conservation efforts, and land acquisition for watershed protection. I also think we need more green spaces and tree planting to combat extreme heat, especially in East Austin, which is proving to be significantly warmer than West Austin. We should keep equity in mind with this bond. I would also like to see weatherization, a sustainable workforce program, and the shutting down of the Fayette coal plant. Finally, if this bond isn't going to happen for 2 years, then we should really use this time to make sure we are prepared to implement it effectively so that all the money is spent quickly and strategically. We should not be dragging our feet on this issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Edwin Bautista.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the clarification, Mayor, and I appreciate the diligence on this issue. My name is Edwin Bautista. I'm a resident of District 7. Today, I address you from a position of neutrality on item 93, but with a compelling sense of urgency and profound concern for our city's direction and leadership. First, let's address the financial elephant in the room. The City of Austin is currently burdened with over $1 billion in unissued bonds. This significant backlog not only highlights a troubling inefficiency in fiscal management, but also undermines public trust in the city's ability to deliver on promised improvements. Austinites deserve better than empty promises and delayed projects. The creation of the Capital Delivery Services Department under the former interim city manager was a commendable step. I think this department, which aims to expedite project design and implementation, represents a rare bright spot in our city's recent administrative efforts. Unfortunately, progress remains painfully slow. Despite the new processes intended to cut design time, we're still far from achieving the efficiency our city desperately needs. Mayor Watson, your leadership during these challenging times has been less than inspiring. Your reluctancy to support an environmental bond this year signals a troubling disconnect from the urgent needs of our city. Climate change is not a distant threat. It's a present and accelerating crisis. The arrival of Hurricane Beryl should have been a wake-up call, yet we see a continued pattern of procrastination and inaction. Let me be clear. We need bold, decisive action, not hesitation and delay. While I respect the complexities of managing a city as dynamic as Austin, it's imperative that we address these financial inefficiencies head-on. Austinites deserve timely and transparent execution of city projects, and our future depends on robust climate action now, not years down the line. As an Austinite, I want to see the environmental bond on the ballot in November. It does not have to be a $1 billion bond. $200 to $300 million will suffice. I urge this council and our mayor to reevaluate our financial strategies, accelerate the pace of our capital projects, and take the bold steps necessary to ensure a sustainable and prosperous future for Austin. We cannot be content with incremental progress when the stakes are so high. Thank you.
We'll now move to in-person speakers on item 93. Christian Fogarty, Sean Atkins, Craig Nazer. If your name's been called, please make your way to the front.
Hello again. I'm Craig Nazer, President, Austin Environmental Democrats, and the Conservation Chair of the Lone Star chapter of the Sierra Club. For the past 12 months, the average global temperature has been 1.52 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. According to official projections, that wasn't supposed to happen yet. However, this was anticipated by the minority report to the Austin Climate Equity Plan of 2021, known as the Climate Emergency Response. This report was sent to all City Council members. I am one of a number of co-authors of that report. We understand the issues and the problems with the bond election in 2024 to fund climate action. However, the thermometer will not care about any city's bond rating. Reconciling those two realities will not be easy. This makes it very important to make sure that recommendations for funding will truly help the climate from a scientific standpoint. Depending on the federal government to bail us out if things get beyond OSSA's capacity to respond may depend entirely on the results of the upcoming election. The state of Texas, as well, is not a reliable partner. Please keep all this in mind in the upcoming budget discussions. Good luck, and remember, the environmental community of Austin continues to be an incredible resource to support strong climate action. Thanks.
Rita Thompson, Bill Bunch, speaking on item 93.
Call a couple of other names while he's coming down.
Those are all the speakers for item 93, Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Bill Bunch with Save Our Springs Alliance. We certainly support a climate bond targeted primarily at land protection, which is a big part of and a critical part of the Austin Climate Equity Plan, and especially reforesting and rewilding that land, as well as reforesting and rewilding citywide, especially in the central city. Where we desperately need to have more trees, more foliage to address urban heat island effects and for carbon capture both. You would not need to postpone this effort if you would simply look at your budget and see where you're spending literally billions of dollars blindly rushing ahead. With projects that are going to increase climate change, worsen climate change, with increased pumping costs, enormous amounts of steel and concrete that are unnecessary. We should be looking at every one of these projects as they come along with a climate impact assessment as a requirement on every major spending item. If you did that, you could do the climate bond today without raising any of the budget. Congress passed the National Environmental Policy Act in 1970 to require environmental impact statements on every single major action of the federal government. The idea there was you integrate environmental protection across all departments, all agencies, every major significant decision. We should have climate top of mind. And if you really cared about it, and we're in an existential crisis locally and globally, as you know, that's what you need to be doing. So pretending like, you care about climate change, what it means for Austin, what it means for our children and grandchildren, what it means for us right now, what it means for our water supply, by talking about a bond next year and ignoring everything you're doing every time you meet that is digging the hole deeper for us and every creature that we share the planet with. Please wake up and take meaningful action. Thank you.
Members, those are all the people that have signed up to speak on item number 93. There's a motion and a second. I'll ask for any discussion. Councilmember Allison Alter.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all the folks who came out to speak today and the many people who've been involved with the process that's been going on since February, the Joint Sustainability Committee, our staff that are involved in putting forward the memo that had a list of the plans, but also all the staff and the community members who have been involved with this list of plans that we have for our city that requires funding if we're going to really achieve our climate goals. So thank you for being here. Colleagues, I pulled this item because I think this merits discussion. We did not have any opportunities to do that in full in work session. I'd hoped that the food plan discussion would segue into discussion of this, but we did not have a full dais, so it didn't feel appropriate to have that. And, I want to just talk about some of how I'm feeling about this process and the bond, and would love to hear more from my colleagues as I feel comfortable. But in particular, I want to call your attention to an answer in the Q&A that just came out, or probably, I think this morning, I'm not sure exactly when it got in there, that I asked about 93. And the question I asked was, to please provide the remaining balances from the 2018 bond propositions for parkland and water quality land acquisition. And here's what the answer was. In the 2018 bond, there is $72 million for water quality land acquisition. As of today, $43.6 million has been spent. 25 million, I assume that is, encumbered with a remaining balance of 28.4 million. However, the remaining balance is programmed and should be spent by the end of the calendar year. The two acquisitions that are being finalized, which are part of the remaining balance of 28.4 million, are Mockford, 19 million, Stark, 500,000. In the last 2 weeks, we've reached agreements on 2 conservation easements. These last 2 agreements will add about 298 acres and will use all the remaining 2018 bond funding of $8.5 million for water quality land acquisition. I'll editorialize here and say that means we have $0 left after the end of this calendar year for water quality acquisition. Moving now to PARD. PARD has a balance of uncommitted bond funding of $1.2 million. $1.2 million. PARD has several acquisitions in negotiation that have not yet been assigned in the accounting system, but that will take up the remaining balance, leaving $0 budget within a year's time. So PARD has $0 available for land acquisition. On Tuesday, we had a great presentation about the food plan, and I hope everyone will read that plan, but strategy number 1 for the food plan is land acquisition. Do we have any money? No, we don't have any money for the food plan at all, let alone for land acquisition. So the bottom line is we have $0 at pretty much right now, even if we went to a November election for this. And so now, when we talk about putting off the climate bond or any bonds, that means we won't have any dollars for land acquisition, according to this proposal, as I understand it, till 2027, because you pass it in November and you don't get it until then. Meanwhile, we have a market right now which is the most favorable we've seen since I've been on the dais for purchasing land, and yet we have no money. And for me, this is a tragedy, and this is why I would really have preferred if we had had a conversation about how we were moving forward in a way where it was truly collaborative, where we could voice things. Having a discussion on the message board over July 4th weekend. I personally was on vacation, as was most of Austin, so people were not able to chime in and say things. And I think that making a decision like this without having the opportunity to air the facts and the challenges puts us in a difficult situation. And so we'd really, love to know what the solution is for the land acquisition. We have properties right now that we could get for our food plan that we can't fund, that we're going to lose, that are really, really choice properties. And so I really would have preferred a yes and I want to make that really clear. There was an opportunity. No one needed to do a $1.6 billion bond, which was what was in the investment options that we had, but we could have done an interim step that had $100 million for land acquisition, which could have gotten us to 26. We could have done another $100 million that would have allowed us to put solar locally on city land in ways that would allow us over time to reduce our energy costs and to put more local solar in place. And I think our community would have supported that. And I think we need to recognize that in taking this step and having the conversation in the way that we're having it, we are foreclosing really important things. And I would really like to understand from the mayor, what is the process for acquiring land in this interim? How are we going to do it, and what is your commitment to helping us do that? And I'd also like to hear from my colleagues, what is it that you want out of this climate bond, and what is the timing that you're hoping for?
Well, before I recognize Councilmember Cadre, let me quickly try to answer that for you. And I've said it a number of times publicly and on the message board. I agree that land acquisition has to be one of the paramount approaches. But I can't tell you right now, and I don't believe you can or anyone can say exactly how we ought to go about doing that, other than maybe rushing out and finding land that's for sale or bidding on it, and how you would do that in a comprehensive way so that the dollars that you're spending, as was pointed out by at least one of the speakers, the dollars that you're spending are getting you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of climate change, and for that matter, how you deal with the food plan. What this does is it recognizes the urgency with which we need to move, and it recognizes that we need to move urgently in a way that makes sense, so that if you're doing one thing, it will give you more value because it coordinates with another thing, and it recognizes that the needs of the city we have needs. Clearly, wanting to address climate investment is a key need of the city, but we also are in a situation where we have other needs, and a comprehensive bond proposal would be part of that. In addition, a bond proposal for climate investment, I anticipate, will be only one tool that we use. There will be other tools that we will want to use for climate investment, and we need to have an analysis of how we go about doing that, so that a bond proposal and a bond package would fit within that as well. So what this does is it recognizes the urgency. It says we want to move as rapidly as we can, but we want to do it in an organized way where we're doing right by the issue, and we're doing right by other issues that may need to be addressed as well. It's interesting to hear one of the comments from one of the speakers that we have $1.6 billion that hasn't been spent. I would suggest that part of the reason there's $1.6 billion that hasn't been spent is that it wasn't well thought out at the time those things were put on the ballot. And now you have $1.6 billion. How do you go about getting that spent? We want to do this the right way. We want to do it as urgently as possible, but you can't just say you're for protecting climate, protecting the earth and protecting the environment, and throw something at it unless you're thinking it through. And that's what this does. It creates the urgency, and it creates the process so that we make sure we're addressing everything and we get the return that the people paying for it deserve. You are absolutely right when you suggest that we're going to need to make land purchases. I'm pretty proud of the role I've played in land purchases in this community in the past 25 and 30 years. And in fact, when we did that the first time, when we started doing it the first time, we did it with a process where we looked at the science of where we were going to make those land purchases, so that when we made the land purchases, not only were we getting the right value for our dollar, but we were getting a better scientific result. And that's what this is, a part of the goal to be achieved. So other discussion. Councilmember Cadre, you had indicated.
Oh, I accidentally had put that.
Oh, sorry about that. Councilmember Ryan Alter.
Thank you very much. It's no secret. I hoped we were going to be a different place today. I think we all know that. I recognize some of the questions and concerns of setting forth a different process than how we got here, and I fully respect and appreciate what you're saying, Mayor. I would take only one issue with one thing you said, and I think that in terms of what we were planning on putting forward, how well thought out it was. This was based on thousands of hours of professional and staff work coming into then this year, asking staff to once again review that work that was done by professionals in the community, and then us as a group trying to figure out what would have that biggest bang for the buck, and that's why we focused on the land acquisition. Councilmember Allison Alter talked about the solar that would not only reduce local emissions related to our buildings, but would help with some of the issues we heard about from Austin Energy with local solar, and would save the city money over time that we would have general fund to spend on other priorities. Looking at how we can ensure that our projects that are through that $1.6 billion that you talked about, that is primarily mobility related, how all that concrete we're about to lay in this city can be more low carbon concrete and have a reduced effect. How we can ensure that we have less flooding throughout the city. I know there are districts who really have that challenge, and it sticks out in my mind. I went to an electrification expo of various equipment, whether that's vehicles or lawn care equipment, and I was speaking with some PARD staff about saying we would love to do some of this stuff, but we don't have the charging infrastructure at our facilities, and that's what's stopping us. And so trying to be able to put those types of investments into place so that it wouldn't solve the whole problem. It would be just a piece of that comprehensive approach, and so but here we are, and I recognize that, and I fully anticipate that we're going to have a very robust conversation about where we do need to make priorities. And I have one question, and I don't know if it's for you, for the Mayor Pro Tem, for James Snow, but just in thinking through this process as we go forward, there are going to be a lot of different issues. We're going to be talking about libraries. We're going to be talking about parks. We're going to be talking about the climate. We're going to be talking about roads, bridges, the gamut, and that is important to weigh those things. What happens if we, as this process goes through, if we find ourselves with a completed product as it relates to, let's say, the environmental element or the watershed piece that fits into that, but there is either a library or a PARD facility like we've seen with the DAC that it's going to need another 4 months of engineering and scoping. Are we going to be able to give the task force the authority to come to council and say, hey, that climate piece or that watershed piece that's going to protect water quality, that's ready to go, and so here it is, and y'all can make that decision. So I just don't know.
I'll tell you the way I see it, for what that's worth, as the person who was trying to help coordinate this as part of the resolution, is that so long as we are making a decision where we can see that comprehensive aspect of it, knowing the urgency of some of these issues that we want to address, if what we do is we say, we're ready to go on A and B, but the comprehensive package we're looking at as an entity, and by the way, it will be the same council in 25 and 26, that entity can make a comprehensive decision and be able to represent to the public, here's what we're thinking, here's what we're going to want to do now, here's what we may need to take a little more time on for the kinds of technical thing you're talking about. But there's not a reason to, because of the sense of urgency, in my view, so long as we can make a comprehensive decision, there's not a reason to say, stop that because we need to do more technical here, so long as it's all being looked at together.
And that's exactly what I was thinking that the process would work, and I think as we get towards probably June, July of next year, whatever the scope or range of projects, we're going to know at that point. They might not all be fully baked, and we might not know the numbers, but I fully anticipate that everything will be on the table at that point. And so it's my hope that we include in the resolution that the Mayor Pro Tem is bringing some authority of the Bond Advisory Task Force to make recommendations as they are available, so that we can make that decision whether we want to do a 25 or just do everything in 26.
Well, as you know, there are a number of very strong, thoughtful environmentalists in this community that were saying 26, 26, 26.
Sure.
And the approach that has been taken, there's specific language of no later than 26 for a reason, and that is because there is a sense of urgency. Let's do this right, but it doesn't mean you have to wait.
Right. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate, us as a group coming together to figure out what that proper next step is, and this appears to be it, and so I'm going to do everything in my power to support this process to get it through to the finish line, because this is an existential issue for our community, and I think it's time for us to take that action that will have a meaningful impact for generations. And so I look forward to carrying forward this conversation in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem.
Maybe just to kind of encapsulate all this, I also want to just remind us all that it's not just the general obligation bonds. We have certificates of obligation, we have revenue bonds, and those different tools, and then there are other tools as well. And so we're looking forward to the city manager bringing us the recommendations on timing and which projects and what that cadence looks like, so that we can launch into these projects as they are prepared and ready to go. I talk a lot about shovel-ready projects, and I do hope that we can move in that direction for those projects where that would be appropriate, because I do think then we can get the bond projects underway sooner. And so I'll be looking at that. But Mayor, I'm just so excited to get the Bond Election Advisory Task Force pulled together. I really appreciate the level of involvement and participation across the dais for the conversation. I recognize it when we were away from having council meetings every other week, so it did force it to be on the message board, but that did provide us with the necessary forum, Mayor, to get us to the place where we are. And I'm just really grateful that we've been able to get there so quickly, and look forward to continuing to work with everybody on this effort.
Thank you, Member Tim. Councilmember Vela.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I'm excited about this item. I'm looking forward to the task force getting together and really evaluating what are the projects that are ready to go. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. My understanding is that from a transportation perspective, from a mobility perspective, the sidewalks were burning through that money quickly. We may not have enough money for ongoing sidewalk construction before we get to potentially a transportation bond in 2026, and that is a real concern of mine. The District 4 in particular, very high transit usage, a lot of working class folks. There's a lot of folks that really need that the sidewalk build out to access really everything in their world. So I just wanted to highlight that in particular as something that we may need to put on the table before 2026, just some kind of bridge funding or something. And my understanding with that is that sidewalks would be eligible for certificates of obligation, for example, to create some amount of bridge funding until we get to another major transportation bond. But I just wanted to highlight that. And also, I really appreciate. I'm glad that we're not trying to pick projects for the next couple of months. I think about that Carpenter's saying about measure twice, cut once. And I think that's what we're doing. I will say I don't want to completely take a November 25 off the table. That again, let's get the committee together. Let's have them look at everything. Let's see where we're going. And if it turns out that we're ready to go by November 25 with, this set of projects, it may not be. It may be that revenue bonds and certificates of obligation, and there's other areas that where we wouldn't need to go to a general obligation bond. But I just don't want to, at this point, say, no, we're going to wait till November. Let's get everything together. Let's take a look at it. Let's see where we are, and then let's move forward.
No later than 26. Councilmember Qadri. Thank you, Councilmember Vela.
And I pressed it on intentionally this time. No, I appreciate the.
You keep it's like Morse code.
Sometimes I'm trying to just go on the ATX sign on the screen. No, I appreciate the discussion that's currently taking place on the dais. I'm excited for the item, and I already talked to the Mayor Pro Tem when she works on her item. If I could be a part of that, and I think it's been said on the dais. We need to be both intentional, and we also need to be urgent when it comes to climate action. And I'm excited about this task force kind of coming together. And kind of going off what Councilmember Vela said, if the task force comes back with a recommendation for an earlier bond election on projects related to sustainability and environmental protection, I think we should definitely act in November 2025. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Ellis?
I don't think I pushed any buttons, but I'll go ahead and take the opportunity to speak.
Your name was there.
Oh, look at that. I really appreciate the focus that's happening here. I know that everybody wants to see us attack these climate change issues very studiously and as quickly as possible. There is so much good information that has come out of Councilmember Ryan Alter's original proposal to even start gathering this information, that it's clear that there's a need and that there's community support to address these issues and to figure out how we can most expeditiously do what we need for the community. I know there may still be some items out there as we look at building a task force that maybe we haven't thought about yet. And so there may be some common agreement on many of these high profile issues. I think, trying to get more trees back into our community as it grows, trying to deal with flood mitigation is going to be a really huge impact. A lot of our mobility projects that haven't broken ground yet are kind of stuck in a place because of the floodplain changes that have happened with Atlas 14. And so we need to take that into consideration and see how we can best partner where we're coming from and where we are headed and what we want to see as a dais for these projects. There's a number of other issues that we're tackling with the city, like rebates for electric vehicles and electric bikes. A lot of my district is not on Austin Energy, and they don't qualify to participate in some of these programs that are hugely successful that we're already doing as a city. And so I want to make sure that we're putting items into this package that will help all parts of town. Every time these come up, I've been involved in just a couple of bond packages being able to be put together. But there's always someone that will say, oh, I have a project that is almost ready to go, or we have a preliminary engineering report, and if we just add this or tweak that, then we can get a more comprehensive plan. And so I'm very excited to be moving forward with this. I just want to make sure we don't miss any opportunity and have to wait another 5 years because we didn't think of something in that moment. So I appreciate everyone being able to take a moment to really build this and build it well and build it very strong for the community, because I think we're going to have a successful program at the end of the day.
Thank you, Councilmember. Members, Councilmember Allison Alter.
Thank you. I just want to be really clear that what I just said is our land acquisition money that we had in our bonds is completely spent, right on time, right on schedule. You don't work through the land acquisition process the same way. Thanks to the work you did earlier, Mayor, on the air, water quality lands, we have a process. We know what we're targeting. We have a sense of that. We have a long-range plan for PARD. We have a food plan. We know where we want it. We don't control the market. If we don't have money, we will not have the land. And that is the bottom line there. And it's not the same thing. None of us were advocating a bond this year that would have required engineering studies that were huge and other things. If you put the solar on our city buildings, it's a process that you can figure out in that timetable and make happen if you have the money to do it. We're obviously not moving forward with that at this point, but I did really want to make sure that we were transparent about what we're giving up. And I want to challenge each of you. I want to challenge you, Mayor. I want to challenge the whole dais. I want to challenge the city manager to figure out ways that we can acquire this land. If we don't acquire this land, it will be developed. There will be other headaches that we have to deal with. We could easily have said we want to acquire land that achieves multiple goals. Perfect is the enemy of good. We do not have time to waste on this. And so I really do think that, if we're not going to go forward with the bond, then I really want to challenge you, each of you, to be creative. What are you going to do to help us, secure the land we need for our food plan? What are you going to do to make sure that there's parks in your neighborhoods? We've lost parkland dedication for all effects. I mean, there's going to be no parks added to your neighborhoods, for this couple years. So we need mechanisms and we need opportunities so that we can make those things happen. I also want to ask, my understanding from Mayor Pro Tem Poole that she is planning to have a draft of her resolution by Friday. And I would invite all of you to join us at Audit and Finance Committee next week. We've placed an additional item on the agenda so we can continue the conversation in Audit and Finance. And I think that Audit and Finance for a bond process and this implementation plan is the appropriate committee to do a certain amount of this work. And I invite the Mobility Committee also, I think, has an important role in advancing these pieces. And then finally, for the city manager, I mean, there was a ton of stuff that was identified in the work that followed from Councilmember Ryan Alter's resolution. Many of that is already in the works in one way or another, and I don't want any of what we're talking about today to be interpreted as a stop or slow down on things that our staff have already decided we need to do, and we need to make these investments, and that can move the needle on things. And I want to encourage you also to be creative. If there's a way to get more solar on our buildings, using COs or other things, we need to start thinking about it. The longer we wait, the higher the temperature goes. And we've seen with the recent hurricane in Houston, I can only imagine what we'd be going through here if we owned the utility that failed and we were dealing with people still out of power, a week plus in heat like we have. So we have to take these actions, and we cannot let planning, perfection be the enemy of us actually addressing an issue that we've heard loud and clear from our community that they want addressed.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Fuentes?
Yes, thank you. I just want to underscore that yesterday I had a town hall on the budget in my community, and I heard from constituents that live in South Austin, South Central Austin, who are asking me about why is it that the city isn't buying more parkland? What about more parks in South Austin? So it is very disheartening to hear that we do not have funding available for land acquisition until 2027 at best. It's disappointing. I think that we have really missed an opportunity to go to our community, to go out for a bond, to be able to acquire more land. 3 years from now is too long. So I appreciate my colleagues' comments that there is an interest in looking at 2025, but ultimately I do think we've lost an opportunity here to move forward in the coming months.
Thank you, Councilmember. Members, in closing, I'll just say that this will have the city manager bring back two big items for us. One is a comprehensive climate investment proposal and a comprehensive bond package. I think this has been a good discussion for clarification purposes. And with that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of item number 93, version 2, which was the motion, indicate by saying aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right. There being Councilmember Harper Madison, if you're capable of showing your vote, there being 9 in favor and 1 in opposition. And Councilmember Harper Madison temporarily off the dais. The motion on item number 93 is adopted.
Mayor, if I just might add, I'm voting yes because I always wanted a yes and. We do need the planning for the comprehensive plan. We need a bond in 26, but I just thought we should be putting that climate bond sooner.
Thank you. Members, what we'll do at this point is go to